Now that you've completed watching the videos, I'm going to give you some helpful hints on the voice-assisted mannequins. So I usually have people start with the baby because that's a little bit easier. It's important to compress in the correct location and to the correct depth. On the baby, we want to measure the nipple line and right below there. Now you can use the 2 fingers, but it is pretty challenging because where you have to go is all the way down till it hits bottom and all the way back. And that can be a little bit painful on your fingers. So I find, and this sensor is where you're going to need to be pressing. I find that using my knuckle works much better. So when I give the compressions, I use my knuckle. When you first begin compressions, you just do 60 straight compressions at a rate of 100 per minute. You'll get feedback from the computer as you're doing it. Listen to the feedback. If it tells you to place your fingers in the center of the chest, look and say, oh, I need to move up a little because it migrated down. So just adjust, but keep giving compressions. And make sure you come all the way up in between each compression. So press hard, but all the way up before you go back down. To give the breaths, this bag holds 400 milliliters of air. A baby only needs 20 to 40 milliliters, which just depressing your thumb in the bag, about a half of the bag squeeze, is sufficient. It's important that you get a tight seal before you give the breaths, so put your hand closely, making sure you're going to cover the whole mask. Press firmly into the face and then lift up just slightly, not too far. And that's what I want to see, just that little bit of a flaring of the belly. And then count to 5 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before the next breath. Because 12 breaths per minute, you have an 86% chance of survival. If you go like that, 30 breaths, drops down to 13% survival. So it's important that you give those breaths slowly. Then when it comes to the compression and breath portion, the CPR, putting it all together for both the infant and the adult mannequin, it's critically important that you do not touch the mannequin until it says start when you are ready. Then you touch the mannequin, you do your 30 compressions. After your 30, you have 10 seconds off the chest to give your first breath, and then give your second breath, and then get right back on the chest again. If you exceed 10 seconds off the chest at any period of time, then you fail that cycle. And even though I say fail, you can do it as many times as you need to. Just pay attention to the cues from the computer, what it tells you, try to correct. Even if you get a lot of bad feedback, when you complete the cycle and it says continue if you want more practice, you say, no thank you. Go over and touch the computer, say continue, and say this should count towards certification, even if you've had bad feedback. Because sometimes, even though you've had a few bad feedback, it still passes you on it. So if you say it won't count and you did a good job, then you're going to have to do it again. So it's just better to pick that you want it to count. So now I'll show you the cues on the adult that will help you to succeed. The adult requires a lot more effort, and both mannequins are within 1/16 of an inch of accuracy in assessing your ability to give effective compressions. So I usually stand on a stool when I'm doing this, just a little bit of a stool, but I'll stand on my tiptoes for this video. I take my middle finger and line it up with the nipple line and make sure the heel of my hand is right in the center of the chest. You really have to press hard, so I'm going to show you exactly how hard you have to press. If you get feedback to make sure you release between compressions, just lift the heel of your hand, just the slightest amount there, and then put it back down so that as you're giving those compressions. Again, at a rate of 100 per minute, first you do just compressions, don't count, the computer will count for you. Then you do just breaths, the computer will count for you. But then putting it together, you have to count your compressions so you know when it's time to give those 2 breaths. So first I'll show you the compressions, then I'll show you the breaths, and then I'll show you the putting it together. So, 2, 3. So as you can see, it's a workout. You're excused from the gym after doing CPR on the mannequins here. So that's how hard you have to press. Sometimes just make sure that your elbows are locked and your shoulders are right over the mannequin's chest so that you give the most effective compressions. And then for the breaths, even though I'm right-handed, I use my right hand to get a tight seal. So press firmly into the face, lift up, and then squeeze the bag, about a half a bag squeeze, and do it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, the computer will count for you. You don't have to count. The important point is when it comes to the CPR cycles, you're 30 and 2. You've given your 30th compression. You have just 10 seconds. Take your time to get a tight seal there. Give the first breath. Count to 5. Give the second one. As soon as you give the second one, drop the bag and right back on the chest so you don't exceed that 10 seconds at any time. And if you just pay attention to all these helpful hints that I've given you, you can and you will succeed on the bands. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video to help you succeed.